Hi, and welcome back to the product creation module. This is lesson 3, product aesthetics. Product aesthetics deals mainly with the way your product looks. Ideally, your product should be unique to you. Now, when you're doing research and maybe you're on the internet browsing ideas for products, you may be inspired by something you see, but you need to create your resources so they're unique to you and unique to your niche and your brand. When you're creating a product, there are specific rules that should be followed when you're creating that resource. So we're going to go over those rules in this lesson. In this lesson, we'll go over the Brilliant Product Creation Blueprint. This is a framework I've created for you to go over the steps necessary to create a brilliant product. We'll also go over how to implement that product and the tips for an aesthetically pleasing product. So before we get started, let's look at the Brilliant Product Creation Blueprint. Number 1, you're going to define your brilliant idea and then map it out. In the second section, you're going to choose fonts and clip art, choose a layout and style, and create the resource pages. And last, you'll create a cover, credits, table of contents, and preview. Then you'll edit and finally create videos and photos of your product. Now we're going to go over all of these steps in today's lesson. Let's start with defining your brilliant idea. This step should be easy. You should already have all your brilliant ideas mapped out if you've been going through the course modules. But if you don't have any ideas yet, go ahead and go back to that 25 list strategy. Make a list of 25 ideas you'd like to create for your brand and your store. Then circle the top 5 ideas. Those are your top 5 resource ideas you should be focusing on this year. And if you complete them, then you can move on to other items on the list or create a whole new 25 items list and start over. Once you've chosen your idea, it's time to map it out. You can use the mind map included in your tab workbook or any other method you'd like. Then I want you to create tasks and map out the entire project from start to finish. As you know, I like to use Asana to do this. Now let's come back to our Brilliant Product Creation Blueprint. You've defined your idea and you're going to map it out. Another important step when creating a brilliant product is choosing the fonts and clip art, choosing your layout and style, and creating the resource pages. This all goes into the organization of your product. Now, what about fonts and clip art? It's important to choose fonts and clip art that go well together and look great for your product. I want you to make sure that when you're choosing fonts, you don't choose more than 3 or 4 fonts for the entire product. You can stick with your brand fonts, but you don't have to because sometimes those fonts won't work for your product. So just make sure that you choose 3 or 4 fonts that go well together and you stick with those for the entire resource. And don't use more than 3 fonts per page. Otherwise, it's going to look messy and actually be harder to read. I also want you to make sure that the fonts you choose are easy for your audience to read. Yes, the audience you're selling to is teachers, but the audience actually using your resource is students. And some of those students may be very young and may not be able to read cursive fonts or fancy fonts. So you need to make sure that the fonts you're using are easy for students to read. And like I said, you don't need to stick with the brand fonts you do on your cover, but not necessarily inside the product. Here are some examples of do's and don'ts with fonts in your product. Let's take a look at some of my very first products compared to my more recent ones. So this was from one of my very first products, and it was a writing resource. And you can see here that I have this fancy writing and then this writing here. I would say that those fonts are fine. But this page goes with this same resource and the fonts are all over the place. They just don't mesh well together. And then this page also goes with these resources and you can see that I've used even another font. So none of these fonts are flowing well together. And then if you look at the cover, it's just not really meshing well with the rest of the design. And when we go to our next lesson, we'll go over why this cover is not ideal for TPT. All right, here's some more don'ts when it comes to fonts and clip art. I want you to make sure you're not having too much empty space on your page and that your fonts aren't just all over the place. And what I mean by that is these two resource pages are from the same item, but the fonts are so different, you would never know that. Also, look at all this empty space I have on the edges and all around these pages. You want to make sure you're filling your products with useful information that's also educational, not just fluff. And a lot of this I would consider fluff. The clip art is cute and can add a touch of fun, but you don't want that to be the main focus of the resource. Also, take a look at this font here under Science Goals. I don't like to use fancy fonts for the main reading part of the principle because that might be hard for a student to read. You don't know what students' reading levels are that are using your products. So you want to use a font that's easy to read. Okay, here are some more don'ts when creating resources. Huge distracting borders on content pages. When you're creating resources, you don't want the borders to distract from the educational value you're providing the students and teachers. Now, if you're having just a fun page that's maybe a fun writing page for a holiday, or it's an all about me page, then these fun borders might be okay occasionally. But for really good content pages, you need to stray away from these giant borders that will distract students and just make them want to color and doodle more. So these pages are actually from the same product, but again, you would never know because the borders are different and the fonts are so different. So make sure to keep your design and your layout consistent throughout your whole product. All right, now here's some do's with fonts and clip art. I want you to take a look at this time capsule page and see how I created this thin border that does not distract from the whole page, and it doesn't distract from what the student needs to accomplish, but it does add a nice touch. I also used this same font consistently throughout this whole page, and it's an easy to read font that students at all levels could read. I also used my space and tried not to have any extra space anywhere. Now, this is a time capsule that students will fill out at the beginning of the year and then read at the end of the year to see how they've changed. So they're going to be doing a lot of writing and drawing in here. So that's where some of this empty space is. But you can see that I did use this whole page and I did not use a lot of fluff. Students are going to be using every inch possible. Now on this page, this is an instruction page, and I stuck with my brand fonts inside the instruction page. And in a moment, I will show you in depth more products and how I keep consistent with my fonts throughout. But here's just a sample of one page from a product to show you how I have this instruction page for the teachers, and I made sure it was easy to read, and I had examples of what they needed to see and do. And then just here's another example. This is a color by code page where I used easy fonts and I filled up this whole page as much as I could so that there wasn't a lot of fluff included. Here are some more examples of do's just that you can see how I filled up the page. These are all from the same product, and you can tell that they're all from the same product because the layout's the same. I have thin borders going around the pages. I have the same fonts that I'm using. And I made sure to use similar clip art from the same clip artist. As much as possible in each product or each product line, use clip art from the same clip artist. It will make your product flow better and look neater. Here are some more great do's when creating your products. If you need to save space or you don't have a lot of resource that needs to be shared on a page, just use a half a page. So this puzzle number 1 and puzzle 17 and puzzle 2 are all part of an escape room game that I have. but I don't need to use an entire sheet of paper. It would be a waste and there would be a lot of empty space. So I made them half sheets, and that also saves paper for the teacher and students. They don't need a whole page, they just have a half sheet of paper. So you can think about that too as you're creating. And here are just some samples of digital products that I used the whole page effectively, and I made sure to use consistent fonts when I was creating the resource. Let's take another look at our brilliant creation blueprint. We just went over choosing fonts and clip art. Let's now talk about choosing a layout and style, as well as creating resource pages. When you're choosing a design and a layout, you want to choose a design you can keep consistent throughout your entire product. So for example, this is a sample from my doodle journals. I have them for the entire year, and this is just a small sample from the first month. I provide these doodle journals in both color and black and white, so I keep that consistent for my buyers. Now, you can also see what I keep consistent is the fonts. And you know that I think that is very important for creating an aesthetically pleasing product. This same font is used for every product in this product line. There are 9 doodle journal sets included, and they all have the exact same fonts for the entire product. And you can tell that they all go together and they all flow very well. I've also chosen clip art from the same clip artist for the entire product line. So make sure when you're choosing clip art and fonts that it can go well with the layout you choose. And you want that layout to be consistent for your entire resource, whether it's one resource or 10. Now, when you're creating those resource pages, you can keep them consistent too. So I always include the journal prompt information pages and instruction pages for the teachers. And then this is a different month, but you can see that I've kept it consistent with this same look and this same feel. So teachers know what to see and expect, and so do students. All right, now taking a look back at our product creation blueprint, you can see we have now moved to section 3, create. And it's time to create a cover, credits, table of contents, and a preview. Now, I think your cover and your previews are so important that I've dedicated an entire lesson in this module to them. But we are going to quickly go over adding them because that is a step in our product creation blueprint. When you're creating a cover, I always create one as 8.5 by 11 that goes with the product when the teacher downloads it. Obviously, you're also going to create a square cover to put on TPT. That's the first cover people see when they are looking through your store. But this is my cover for when the product is downloaded. Then I give that teacher also a table of contents, and you can hyperlink pages to different parts in the resource so teachers can easily jump to the section that they need. And then of course you'll also have a credits page. Now I'll go more in detail about the credits, the preview, and the covers later on in this module, but I just want to give you some quick samples as you're thinking about creating them for your own brilliant resources. Here are some more examples of covers and instruction pages and credits of products. So I have the square cover here for the binder. You can see that I've chosen to use my brand fonts and brand colors. And then I've used some great photos of the product so the teacher can see the product in action. I include photos of every single printable resource in each of the products so that teachers can see that product in real life and what it's supposed to look like. Here is an example of what the preview for this yearly binder looks like. I start with the cover, then I give some quick information about the product with some in-action real photos. Next in our brilliant product creation blueprint, we're in the editing and photos information. Again, I think photos and videos are very important when creating your product, so I do have another lesson in this module dedicated to that. But let's go ahead and take a look into these steps in the product creation blueprint. Editing is not just hitting spell check and making sure everything was spelled correctly. You need to go through your resource several times yourself, and specifically on separate days. If I edit it all in one night, my eyes get tired and I miss things that I might not see. So I like to look at it one night and then look at it again a second or maybe even third night. And then of course I send my resource to someone else to check and edit as well, so that I don't get those comments, although I still do occasionally, or feedback where it says this resource was great, but there was a spelling error on page whatever. So just make sure you're doing your best to get all the editing fixed. And teachers are really good editors themselves, so you really want to make sure you have all that spelling and grammar correct, or they will call you out on it. Now, when you're creating your resources, you want to make sure you have great in-action photos and videos included in the resource so teachers can see it in action, like I said earlier. So I'm going to go through right now and show you some of my products and what they look like start to finish, so you can see what I'm talking about. So here is one sample of what I would consider an aesthetically pleasing product. This is my end of the year doodle and memory book. I have a clear photo and action picture that takes up the majority of the cover, as well as hands holding an iPad to show that a digital option is included. My title is also in my brand font and my brand colors. I've included instruction pages for the teachers so that they can see what is included in this product. And in those instruction pages, I have pictures in action so they can see what it looks like printed out. I've also included the black and white printable pages that they can use with their students. So I go through and they have all the pages here. There's 2 different options for the cover. And then the pages, and you can see that I did not waste any space. I want the kids to fill in all of these boxes for their end of the year memory booklet, but I made sure to include clip art that was all from the same artist and was pleasing and looked good together. And all of my pages have the same look and the same layout, and you can tell that they all go together. So as you're creating your resource, I want you to think about what you can do to make your brand and niche stand out, and how can you create a style that is unique to you, that your customers will know is something you created. Because the products you make should be unique to you and have a similar feel for how you create resources. When someone sees this resource, they'll know, oh, that's Teresa Kwant's doodle books, because I have a lot of doodle product lines. Now, here are printable pages in color. For whatever reason, some teachers like colored pages. I think it wastes a lot of ink, and the kids like coloring it, but I have had requests for it, so I do include colored options regularly in my products. This resource did not include an answer key, obviously, but I do have the credits page. The next product I'm going to show you is part of those doodle journals that I was showing in the presentation earlier. So I have my cover, then I have an instruction page for the teacher so that they can see that I have both the color and the printable black and white option. Then I give them an example slide, and since this is a writing resource, there's not really an answer key included, but this is a good example that they can show their students so they know how to fill out the product. So there's going to be a short graphic organizer to organize their ideas. There's an area to either draw or insert a picture, and then an area to write their final paragraph or 2 that they are prompted to write about for the day. These are journal prompts for the whole month of September. So then this is the instruction page for the teacher on how to get the digital link. And then I have the black and white printable pages. And every single one of my products in this product line looks the same, has the same layout, has the same fonts, has the same clip art from the same clip artist. And so I made sure to use up my entire space. There's not a lot of white space. There's a lot of space that students need to fill in, but it's all very aesthetically pleasing and it works really well together. And there's a unique style that stands out. And then I also provide the colored versions because some teachers do like the colored printable versions, whether they want to use them for their own samples or whatnot. Then at the end, I do provide the credits page. The last product I'd like to show you is my print and play back to school escape room. I have a lot of these games as well, and same thing. They all have a very similar look and layout, so the teachers know how the game is used and the students know how to play them. But they also can count on consistency for a resource. I have instructions on how to play with some pictures to see what the printable resource looks like. I have a table of contents that you can easily click on these links and go directly to that page. So here are the digital instructions. Then I have instructions on how to use the digital version of the game. And then I wanted to show you more of the printable pages because for these clues in the game, having one clue per page would have been a waste of paper, in my opinion. So I made them half-size pages, and I was able to really use that page well so that I could use this for the clue, and then here's their answer here. So I didn't have to use an entire page, but I just used half a page. The teacher also likes that because they're saving on paper too. Then I have all of the pages included, all of the puzzles, and then at the very end, I do have an answer key as well as a credits page. It's really important for any product that does need an answer key to include it because teachers aren't going to want to make one themselves. I hope you've enjoyed this lesson on aesthetically pleasing products and you have some great ideas on how you can make your layout unique to your brand and your products stand out against someone else's. Remember, you might get inspiration when you're researching online, but you are not to copy what other sellers do. You are to create your own look to your own brand in your own niche. That's going to be the best way for you to stand out. So use that product creation blueprint and start creating a product today.